I'm curious, when it comes to the job search, where's everyone at? Are you feeling good about it, stressed about it? Are there certain things on your mind that you definitely want us to cover today? Um, what's going on in your heads in regards to the job search?
Um, I was just telling a couple of my friends I was having like an existential crisis like last night. I was looking at like I guess a couple of I guess a couple of job offers out there, just looking around to see like what's out there, and then I've seen like a couple of videos, but it's kind of I'm sorry getting off track, but the point is that I want to
Good.
make is that I'm trying not to I guess like undercut myself or undersell myself. Like I'll see something and then I'll get discouraged because I feel like maybe I'm not enough, but then I get reminded to just shoot my shot anyway.
Yeah. Well, and the underselling yourself piece is something we're definitely going to cover today. I mean, that's the whole premise of the pitch, right? And it really is, it's nerve wracking, right? You're going through a transitional period. So you're trying to be confident and go through a transitional period at the same time. It's pretty rough, right? Normally, when we go through transitions, we're like, that's when we're the least confident. And we're being like, nope, you got to show up and convince people that you're right for the job, right? And one of the best, or one of the things about going through class is that every day you're like, hey, I don't know this. Let's learn it. I don't know this. Let's learn it. And then you get to the job search and you're like, oh, I'm just supposed to know everything, right? That seems to be the assumption, but it's not true. There's actually the barrier or the bar is much lower than we think it is for what you need. The problem is that we sort of shoot ourselves in the foot by showing up incorrectly and not talking about ourselves properly. And kind of what you said, if we undersell ourselves, it doesn't matter that it's a low bar that we need to cross. We've just undersold ourselves lower than the bar is, even though technically we could do the work, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit, but keep in mind that these companies, as they're talking to you, they're not telling you the God's honest truth, right? They're not saying the last person quit because they burnt out and we made them work weekends. They're not saying like, hey, as soon as we hire you for this role, we'll totally change it on you, right? They're not being totally honest. So they're putting their best foot forward. And that's what we need to do as well. There's no reason to share insecurities when what you should be doing is sharing your best foot forward, right? And I see a lot of people turn their video off. I do try to make this pretty conversational, so feel free to come on video if you're comfortable doing so, or at least unmute and chime in throughout the conversation here. It's always more fun when it's more of a conversation. So we'll dive in. Any other thoughts or anything anyone wants to touch on before we start the convo here? I'm seeing some things in the chat about just being stressed. Yeah, that's for sure. We got to roll with that stress, right? It might not go away. So how do we deal with it on a daily basis? Technical interviews. We won't get into the technical as much today, but it's you can apply a lot of the things that we're going to talk about to the technical interview, because at the end of the day, the technical interview, a big piece of it is explaining yourself and being able to communicate the story behind your answer. If you just silently give them an answer, they won't be happy about that. So you need to be able to walk them through your thought process. So we can always bring that up later if you have more questions. Okay, I'm going to get the presentation pulled up here real quick. Okay, everyone can see what I got on the screen here?
Yep.
Nice. All right, so we'll get into it. So this is the perfect your postgrad or your persuasive pitch here today. And we'll start, I should probably tell you who the heck I am, right? So getting some lag here. Let's see what's going on. So my name is Martin McGovern. I'm the founder and lead coach at careertherapy.com. You're all still seeing the presentation here, right? I got some dual monitor things going on. You never know how that messes with the presentations. All right. So I started my career in marketing and advertising. And over time, I realized that a lot of what I was doing, helping these companies persuade you to buy their products, could also be used to reverse engineer the job search and help you persuade these companies to give you that money right back. And so over the years, I started teaching people how to build personal brands, how to navigate the job search, and it led me into the education space where I started finding all these amazing boot camps. And you can see a number of the ones and universities that I've worked with over the years. It's been really fun kind of taking this marketing background and applying it to individuals and helping you basically navigate the emotional and promotional sides of this job search. I have my own business, careertherapy.com, where I help individuals do the same outside of these boot camps. And today we're going to be, applying a lot of those methodologies, a lot of that marketing mindset, sales mindset to this job search process so that you can kind of see through the BS that the companies throw your way, and also, communicate your value in a way that they care about. All right. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to break it into 3 sections. First section is about putting them first, the company, the hiring people, the person that's going to write your paycheck. When we communicate, we need to talk about them, not us, but them. And a lot of what's out there is all very self-focused, and it gets to be very overwhelming for folks that I coach. So how do we actually get out of our own heads and talk to them about what they care about? The next piece is you. So them, then you. How do you share your unique stories? And then the third one is how do you bring it all together in a way that they care about, perfecting your post-grad pitch. So starting with them first, all right? The first thing we need to realize is that it's not actually about us at the end of the day, all right? Really, when we think about it, if you look at someone's like cover letter, it's very self-focused, right? Has anyone ever read your own cover letter or someone else's cover letter? Just count the number of I's and me's in that thing, and you're going to just be blown away. You're like, oh my gosh, this thing is almost illegible. It's almost impossible to read, the amount of I's and me's that are jammed into this thing. So how do we get out of that mindset? How do we get out of the me mindset? Well, we start thinking about their wants, their needs. What did they have to do behind the scenes to create a budget for this role? And why are they hiring? What is the value they receive, the ROI? And then how do we talk to them in a way that builds trust and rapport? So what do you think the most common thing people will say when asked, tell me about yourself after graduating a boot camp?
Probably the fact that they graduated a boot camp and have no experience.
You're spot on. I recently graduated and I'm excited for the opportunity to learn in this role, receive mentorship, and build my career. All right. What's wrong with this statement?
You're basically letting them know that you don't have any experience, or you're showing all your flaws right away.
Exactly. Starting with flaws is never the way to go, right? Because what they hear is I'm inexperienced, unemployed, and need you to teach me. I'm going to cost this company a lot of money. We do not want to be an expense for a company. We want to be a money maker. Now that becomes kind of nerve-wracking because we're like, well, I'm new. I need to learn a lot. I need a lot of mentorship. I need these things, right? And that's all given, right? If you're entering into a new role, they should be training you. They don't always, but they should be. So you don't have to say it right off the bat because they already know. They already know that they need to train you. They already know that the reason for a team is for a company to cover all of its bases, right? So we don't need to start with the things that we're most concerned about. They already know these things, right? The same way we know that they're probably going to ask us to work weekends, and they're probably going to ask us to do more than is in our job description. And they're probably going to ask us all these things that they don't put in the job listing that will come up later on, right? So how do we get into their shoes? How do we figure out what they care about most? And why are they hiring for this position? What do you think? How might you get into their mindset?
I think specifically with the boot camp, it's pretty, and in this industry, it's important to be able to learn quickly. And, you know, in a 10-week boot camp, we learned a lot. So that might be a good thing to focus on.
For sure. So you look at the things that you learned in the boot camp and ask, why did I learn this? How does this skill help a company, right? What might be one of the things you learned, and how can it tie into what a school does or what a company does? What do you think?
Planning projects or tasks, time management.
So project planning. So that's important to companies for a lot of different reasons. Efficiencies or inefficiencies. Inefficiencies create waste, right? If the projects aren't done on time, then their customers are unhappy, they've lost money, and so on and so forth. So knowing that you have project management skills isn't just good because, hey, look, I can do project management. It's good because your ability to do project management will keep the teams on track, the projects on pace, and get things into the hands of the customers quicker, right? So we always want to be thinking to the next step, right? I did this thing. Let's say you build a front end. I built an amazing front end. Well, that's cool in and of itself. But if no one sees it, what's the point? So who's going to see that front end? How are they going to interact with that front end? What is that front end going to enable a user to do that they weren't able to do before? And how does that help the business? Does it reduce the number of clicks? Does it increase the retention rate? Does it improve engagement? What are the different things? And as we're talking about these things, we can shift the focus away from ourselves onto the company. The company cares about getting more customers, improving the revenue streams, profit and so on. They don't necessarily, it's not that they don't care about you. It's just that the main, they can only really care about you if the business is doing well, right? And most companies aren't hiring from a place of abundance. They're not sitting there going, gosh, we have so much money. Let's give someone a chance, right? Most of them look like Andre's background, right? Just like an absolute dumpster fire where everything is going wrong. And they're like, we need new people. Hire someone, please. We need help on this team, right? That's where they're coming from. They're coming from a fear-based place. So if you're coming from a fear-based place and they're coming from a fear-based place, suddenly you got two groups not communicating. And it becomes very weird, right? Then it becomes like, well, am I good enough for this role? Will they give me a chance? Did they not like me? That's irrelevant. What's most relevant is, did you sell your skills properly, right? When they turn you down, they're not turning you down. They're turning your proposed solution to their problems down. So think about it more like a contractor would, right? A contractor goes into a room and says, do you have any problems? We have these problems. Okay, I have these skills to solve those problems. We don't need those skills. We need these skills. I don't have those skills. Okay, do you know anyone who has those skills? Sure, let me introduce you to another contractor. It's all very business, not personal, right? Getting to that point, difficult to do, but I want to plant that seed and allow you to start, growing it in your mind, because really at the end of the day, companies are not rejecting you. They're rejecting the solution that you tried to sell them. The same way as if you were in a shoe store and they were like, hey, do you want to buy these, soccer cleats? You'd be like, no, I'm trying to run a marathon. Well, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong shoes. Let's do some running shoes instead, right? So you're just trying to cycle through different skills and different solutions until you find what they need. And that's what networking is about. That's what interviews are about. It's about trying to better understand what they're looking for and seeing if you have the right skills to actually help. All right. It takes the spotlight off of you. So each person you talk to is going to have a different thing that they prioritize, a different incentive that they care about, right? What do you think a recruiter cares about when you're talking to them? What is their incentive to talk to you?
Maybe hitting a quota, just getting people in the door so they
Hitting
can
quotas.
make a name for themselves. 100%.
Recruiters external recruiters get paid a commission on your starting salary, right? So you get paid a percentage of your salary. So think about when you're talking to recruiters, why would they help you over someone else? They wouldn't. Everyone is just the same to them. The only question is, can I get this person into a higher paying role? Because then I get a higher commission, right? So if a recruiter had 10 hours in the day, right? Let's say 8 hours in the day, more reasonable. If they had 8 hours in the day and they had the choice to talk to a bunch of senior level people, trying to get them into more senior roles, or a bunch of entry level people trying to get them into entry level roles, and their commissions are based on salaries, what do you think they're going to do? Where are they going to put their time?
The money's at.
Where the money's at. So a lot of people spend most of their job search talking to recruiters, not realizing that the incentives aren't aligned, and that these recruiters keep ghosting them, not because they don't like them, not because they're bad people, but just because the incentives aren't aligned. They don't work for the job seeker, they work for the company, or they work for themselves, right? And so we have to ask ourselves, why would someone who is a networking contact network with me? Why would, when I'm going to say go network, and you say, well, what value do I bring that person, right? What do you think? What's the value that you might bring to someone that you invite into your network or you join their network? What are their incentives to network? It's a tougher one, right? What do you think, though?
More connections?
More connections. So everyone in the professional world is being told to network. So if you reach out to someone, you save them the need to reach out to someone else, right? They're being told to network too. So if they get an invite, oh, it saves them from having to be the one that does the cold outreach. So at the very bare minimum, you're saving them a cold outreach, which is cool. Also, everyone in the working world understands that even if we can't help each other today, there might be a chance that we can help each other in the future. So it's good to get to know each other. Maybe 5 years from now, you might help me get a job at a company, right? That happens all the time. Another thing that might be helpful is that employees are incentivized by their companies to refer people into jobs. So internal referrals can pay anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 to an employee for an internal referral. So a lot of people who work at companies are on the lookout for younger people, for entry-level people to refer into jobs so that they can go on vacation. I got one of my jobs and the person was like, if you quit before I get my payout, I'm gonna be very upset because I want to go to Hawaii. I was like, all right, I won't quit. No worries. But that's why they helped me, you know? Maybe not the only reason, but a reason that they helped me. Everyone you talk to has a different incentive. So it's important to get out of your own head and get out of your own way and start looking at the person and getting curious about the person you're talking to, because the job search is all about people. Who are you meeting? How are you meeting them? What are you talking about? How are you helping? Are you actually curious about them? Or are you just trying to tell them about your background and then ask for a job, right? We need to make it a relationship. And in order to do that, it's important to know what the ROI of your role is. What do you think the ROI of your role is? Anyone have a concept of it? Everyone know what ROI is? The return on investment. How much money do you want to make in your next role? Just ballpark.
50.
50. All right. So if I give you $50,000, what do I get?
What do you get?
Let's say I own a company. I hire you as a front-end developer. I give you $50,000. What do I get?
You get all my skills.
And what do your skills do for my business?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a good question, right? That's the difficulty, right? And that's the thing, right? We go into these jobs and they say, how much do you want to make? And we go, oh my gosh, what number should I give them? Because we have no idea what the return on investment of our role is. Every company, any good, efficient company, should have put together a budget, a plan and a budget and a proposal for why they need to hire this role. So they say, we need to hire a front-end developer to implement X, Y, and Z. Our budget for this role is this much. if they implement this project and they do it well, the return on investment of that project will be X amount, and we're going to, be able to pay them and everyone else on the team, right? If you're only an expense, you're the first one cut from a team, right? You think about those like different jobs that are the first ones out, that are cut from a business. Like the finance team is usually the last one cut because they're the ones running the money, right? But the marketing team is like the first one to go because a lot of times they're just seen as an expense, right? So we have to think about these things. What is the ROI of your role? And it can be hard ROI. It can be general ROI. It doesn't have to be like, exactly how many dollars they'll make off of you, right? It can be like, I understand that if I'm a junior and I get put on a team with a senior person, I can take all of the mundane daily tasks, all the troubleshooting, all the debugging, everything like that off of their lap so that they can go build the next application that will improve the customer experience. So I might be doing stuff that doesn't have a huge ROI, but because I'm doing it, it enables the senior person to go work on the bigger project. And that's going to make enough ROI for both of us, right? So sometimes a supporting role is still contributing to the larger ROI, right? I've been on teams where we launched a new product and it brought in millions of dollars. And I'm like, man, I only get this small cut of it, It's like, and so you got to think about it. Like, you really got to think about how the business operates and go, I understand my place in the context of this company and I understand how companies work. And then when you're actually in the interview, you're not trying to justify anything. You're trying to understand what are the projects that you're trying to implement? How does this role impact those projects? And how do those projects impact the business at large, right? Where is this company going and how am I contributing to the bottom line? If you ask questions like that, they're gonna be like, damn, hire this person because they really care about the business's growth, not just about their own growth. Because most people are saying, will you train me? Will you give me days off? Will I have a learning stipend? Right? Good things to ask, at different times, but you kind of need to show that you're going to bring value before you start asking for it. Now, how do we actually figure out what it is that these companies care about? Why are they hiring these roles? Well, thankfully, Google exists. All right. So literally go to Google and type in, why should I hire, and insert your title. If I were to do this for career coaching, it's like, you need a career coach because you need emotional support. You need a career coach because you need accountability. You need a career coach because you need someone to look at your resume. You need a career coach because you need someone to, show you how to write follow-ups and emails and communicate well and do mock interviews. There's an endless list of things. And at the end of the day, it's to get a higher paying job, right? That's the whole thing. So I need to know all those things so that when people say, well, why should I hire you? I know the reasons you should hire me, and I understand that the things that I do impact you, right? For each of you, sit down and Google your role and look at what these consulting agencies are saying. Look at what these large businesses are saying. Go to their sales pages and say, oh, they're talking about customer engagement. Maybe I should talk about customer engagement. They're talking about retention. Maybe I should talk about retention. They're talking about shorter clicks to purchase, which increases the click-through rate, right? Maybe I should talk about click-through rates a little bit, right? Find the things that resonate with you and the business and borrow them. You don't need to make this all up out of thin air, right? It's all been done before. Every company has had to put a sales page together and a mission together and all these different things. So go see what they've done and borrow your favorite language and bring it into your stuff. Maybe, steal like an artist, find your best mishmash of things and create your own version of your pitch, right? And sell to them like they sell to you, all right? You never hear Nike say, our shareholders would like more money, please buy some shoes. How weird of an email would that be to receive from Nike.com? Hey, our shareholders are like kind of wishing that, people would buy a few more Jordans. Could you, maybe buy a pair? They're really hoping to raise that part of the business a little bit. You would not buy the shoes, right? What they say is, hey, don't you want to look cool in some Jordans? And you're like, yeah, I want to look cool in some Jordans. All right, go buy some Jordans. Or they say like Supreme. Don't you want to be the person who has a Supreme brick? I don't know why you would, but some people do. And they want to flex on social media. So they understand how to promote it in a way that gets a good ROI, right? Don't say, I want to work here because I need a paycheck. That's why everyone wants a job, right? It's the baseline. If you're communicating the baseline, you're not selling well. Why should I buy your shoes? Because they're shoes. Not a good sales pitch, right? Why should I hire you for this role? You should hire me for this role because I will actually impact the team in these ways. I have a real customer-centric view of things. I have a real design-centric view of things. I have a real, data-centric view of things. Whatever your sort of twist on it is, go with that. And don't just say I solve problems, because that's literally every job. Every job solves problems. It's the definition of a job. If you say you just like to solve problems, I'll give you someone's dog to walk. That's not the problem you want to solve, right? You want to solve design problems or coding problems or something specific. Be specific, all right? Now, as you're going on job boards, has anyone hit up the job boards yet? How's it been going?
I've looked around on Indeed and LinkedIn, and I found a couple that I just kind of like saved for later because they seem like they fit like what I needed. And I didn't see any like huge red flags where they wanted me to have like 5 years of experience for an entry level position. Most
of them will say 3 years because companies are embarrassed to say 0 years. I don't know. Like, it's weird. They're like, I don't want to go to my manager and say that I put together a job description that says 0 years experience. They're going to say, well, at least let's try to get someone with more experience, right? It's all this ego crap. Job boards are just billboards. They are advertisements. Have you noticed that like 30% of the job posting is the company just bragging about itself? We've got the best culture and look at our values and we're so amazing. Like, they're trying to sell you on this company. When you actually go network with people at the company, you find out that they don't live half of their values, and it's kind of a BS place to work, or it's just a normal job. Who cares? Like, it's not that big a deal. The truth of the matter is that they're pumping themselves up. So you should also be pumping yourself up. If they're pumping themselves up and then you go, here's all my insecurities, that's a mismatch, right? We're missing each other. So it should be pump up to pump up. And then you actually get into the role and you see what the world is like, right? But one of my favorite things is to talk to people who work in the company before I apply, because then I know what's real and what's not. Or even better, talk to someone who recently quit or got fired. You'll learn a lot about that company, right? So realize that what they're saying in these job boards is kind of BS to some degree. Not to a full degree, but you really only need about 60% of what they have in the job description. So if you've got 60%, you're good. You're golden. Give it a shot. Doesn't mean you'll get it, because job boards only have about a 1 to 5% response rate, but you should at least put your name in the running and then start networking with people at the company. Very often I'll be coaching people and they'll be like, well, it says that I need to have this technology to apply. And I'll go, that's in the nice to haves. That's not even in the requirements. Don't even look at the nice to haves. Just go, just give it a shot. People will spend a half hour wondering whether or not they should apply. And I go, you could have just used that half hour to apply. Come on, let's just go after it, right? You need to be on the attack in these situations. And the nice thing is, if you don't know the answers, you can always just ask questions. It's way better to be curious than to be pretentious or arrogant or think you know everything. They would much rather someone come in with a ton of questions and fewer answers than all the answers and no questions about how the business actually functions. I actually was talking with someone recently who is a recruiter, and he's like, sometimes I just keep asking harder and harder questions to see when they're going to admit that they don't know the answer. Like, I want to find the person who's just going to keep BSing me and cut them from this process, because I need the person who will go, I actually have no idea what that is. What is that? And he's like, I'll ask questions I don't know the answers to, just to see how full of shit these people are. And so it's good to ask questions. It's good to say like, hey, what is this? I think I've heard of that and I've used this and it sounds similar. How do you use this in your company and how important is it to the role, right? Ask questions, build rapport, make it a conversation if you can. Because at the end of the day, they're not looking for perfect candidates. They're looking for people who are helpful and curious. If there's a mindset you need to bring into the interview, it's I'm here to be helpful and I'm curious about this company and this role. And if you approach it from that perspective, even a rejection can be an opportunity to re-engage. So there was a time when I got rejected from a job and I was like, hey, it sounds like you're going for someone more senior. I actually know some people that are more senior than me. Would you like an introduction? Rather than just going, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, goodbye. I opened it up for even more engagement because I'm here to help, not to be the only one who gets the job. So what could happen from that, right? Someone else that you recommend into the role gets that job. And then when they need a junior, they hire you, right? And now you've got this nice reciprocation where the company's happy, the person you helped is happy, and you're happy. Everyone's happy at the end of the day. Or if you turn down a role because it's not right for you, say, hey, I can't take this role, but I do know some people who would be great for this role. Would you like some introductions? You're helpful to the last email, and that's the way to go. All right. So at the end of the day, put them first. Why are they hiring for this role? What skills do you have that solve their problems? And what's the ROI that you bring the business? Any questions on this first section of kind of shifting your mindset from the me first mindset to the them first mindset? Has anyone been stuck in the me first mindset? Has it been stressing you out at all? I'm seeing some nods. All right.
Stuck at the word interview.
Stuck at the word interview. Go ahead.
But if they do ask you how much you're looking to earn, what should you tell them?
So the best thing to
if they
do,
directly ask you.
Yeah, separate it from your self-worth. That's the first thing I'll say. If you're saying, I want to make this much money because I'm worth it, which a lot of articles online will say, like, ask what you're worth, stand up for yourself, and all this other BS. It's like, no, it's what if you were advocating for a friend who is going for this role, what would you advocate for them, right? So think about it this way. If it's a small company, they're going to have a smaller budget. If it's a large company, they're going to have a larger budget. If it's a senior role, it'll have more budget. If it's more junior role, it'll have less budget. So think about it from those perspectives. What I typically do is I go to Glassdoor and I go to PayScale and I look up what the average salaries are for my area for that role. And then I say, based on my research, so I separate it from myself. It's not what I want. It's the research I've done. So I don't say I want 60K. I say based on my research, the average range for roles like this at companies like yours is between 55 and 65 or 60 and 70,000. Of course, I'd like to be at the high end of that range, but I know that there's more to a job offer than just the base salary. So I'm happy to work with you to find something that will work for both of us. How does that fit within your budget? And they'll say,
nice.
Yeah. And the last question, how does that fit within your budget? Because if you don't ask that question, then it'll just be dead silence. Like, here's what typically happens. How much do you want to make? 60,000. Okay, next question. And then you go home and you have a panic attack wondering whether or not you said the right number. So ask, here's the range I'm thinking based on my research. How does that fit within your budget? And they go, yeah, it's pretty close to, or it's a little outside our budget, but we'll talk with the team and we'll let you know. And then you go, great. And then whenever they send over whatever they send, then you can respond back and negotiate via email or in person to get the right mix of things that'll work for you. But if you have more questions on negotiations, hit me up on LinkedIn. We can always talk more in the chat. All All right. The next thing here is telling your stories. A lot of times we are under the impression that we have to come up with like 100 stories for every interview because there's hundreds of different questions that we could possibly be asked, right? So you go to a list of like jobs interview questions, and you're like, I have to have a new story for every single one of these things on the list. We don't. You really only need about 4 to 6 of your best professional stories. And the key thing you want to communicate is what you learned from these experiences and what you can do in the future because of the experiences that you've had. All right. So when it comes to what not to say, if they say, tell me about yourself, or why do you want to work here? Or why do you like this role? Don't say, I like to solve problems and I want to make a difference. Who doesn't? If you're saying something that no one would disagree with, you're probably not saying much at all, right? If I say I'm a hard worker, what does that mean to you? Would anyone come in and say, I'm a lazy worker? So hard worker means nothing, right? If I say, I'm good at communicating, would anyone come into an interview and say, I suck at communicating? No. So you're really not saying much, right? You need to use differentiators. Like, I'm really good at analyzing data. That's something that if someone asked me, hey, Martin, are you good at analyzing data? I'd go, hell no. I'm terrible at analyzing data. Please don't put me in a data role. I don't want to do that. Meanwhile, I can say to someone, you could throw anyone with any emotion at me and I'll be able to help them get to a more neutral place during a phone call because I'm a coach. And that's true. I've talked to people in various situations. I've gone from one call where someone's crying their eyes out to another call where someone's ecstatic because they just got a job in a 2-minute switch. Like that's my skill. But if you ask a back-end developer to do that, they're going to be like, I hate this job, right? They're not going to want to deal with those emotions all day. So you got to talk about the things that actually differentiate you, right? So I'm really good at public speaking. Not everyone is. I'm really good at data analysis. Not everyone is. I'm really good at organization. Not everyone is, right? So we want to talk about concrete things that help me know where to put you on a team. If I know you're really good at presentations and this person's really good at back-end data, putting them together is going to lead to some great presentations, right? Because one will do the data research, one will actually present the information, versus having the data guy who hates getting up in front of a room, nervously talk to our C-suite, right? We don't want that. So knowing what you're good at is going to help with your storytelling. Because what they hear, if we just say, I like to solve problems, is that I don't understand the value of my work. I don't understand what problems I solve. I don't understand, how this fits into the bigger picture. And really all you need is like 4 to 6 stories, because each story that you tell is going to have a lot of different experiences within it that you can dig down into the nuance of. So let's say you built a front-end application in React, right? Throughout the process of building that application, you probably struggled with something, succeeded on something, had a conflict with something, and even showed some leadership skills, all within that one project, right? So what you need to do is say, here are my 4 to 6 projects that I like to talk about. And within each project, depending on what I'm asked in the interview, I'm going to tell this part of the story or that part of the story. All right. So for some homework, if you want, write down a couple of times that you've struggled in your work, a couple of times that you succeeded in your work, a couple of times that you experienced conflict, and then chalk it up to the bigger story so that you know what stories you like to tell in interviews, right? This one's a little bit big idea, so I'm going to pause. What questions do you have around the storytelling side of things here? Can everyone think of at least one story that could be broken up into multiple parts? I'd love to hear an example of one thing you've done in class, a story of something that you built or did that you could reference in an interview. You haven't built anything in class yet. Is that what I'm hearing? Are we on day one? I thought you're all graduating soon.
All right. I mean, I don't have a specific story, but I can tell you of several times that I've spent like hours just trying to understand or fix or do a simple like button or something.
Yeah. Tell me one of those. So what was the project you were working on?
Right now I'm currently working on my capstone, and I was having an issue with the images coming up. It like literally I spent like at least 6 hours just trying to get the freaking images to pop up. So,
and how did you solve it?
I mean, it was a lot of research, specific stuff like looking over my code and seeing any errors that I made or, mispronunciations or like just stuff that I made dumb mistakes on.
Yeah. What did it end up being?
Like a simple comma.
That's a story for an interview. It sounds stupid. It sounds like a throwaway, but that's the story you tell in an interview. They go, tell me about a time that you struggled on a project. And you go, well, I was trying to put together my capstone in class. And while I was doing it, I noticed that the images weren't showing and I couldn't figure out why. And I was like, oh no, what's going on here? So I started digging into the code and I went through it line by line in a very detail-oriented process until I found the one comma that was missing that was preventing the images from showing. Now, what I've learned from that experience is to always check my commas and to go back through periodically while I'm building it so that I don't have to go through the whole thing all at once. I can do it in chunks instead. And that is setting me up for success in future projects because, I've kind of refined my process of build and check and build and check as I go. I don't know, I'm filling in some blanks here, but do you see how that becomes a story that you can tell in an interview? Something that you were like, I don't even know, right? That's the stuff. That's the stuff that these companies want to hear because it shows that you're thinking through the things you're doing on a daily basis versus tell me about a time that you struggled. Well, I was on this team once and I don't know, it was like a really tough project. We were trying to do these different things and it was really tough, but because we were on a team, I talked to some people and we figured it out and, we got it done. I have no idea what you did. I have no idea what that story is. That's a very vague story and it doesn't help, right? So we don't want to be vague. We want to be specific. Was someone about to make a comment there? Thought I saw someone come up.
Well, I was going to ask if it needs to stay related to the job.
Depends on the question. If it's like a people-based question, you can refer to past jobs. If it's a technical question, you might want to keep it more into the projects that you did in class. What story is going through your mind?
I mean, a lot of different stories,
sure.
But I didn't know if they were supposed to be like in the personal life or in the
try to keep it professional.
Job.
Try to keep it professional. Yeah. You can definitely use past jobs. When I was transitioning from marketing into coaching, I used a lot of marketing examples until I had more coaching examples. But as time goes on, I don't really talk about marketing all that much, except in my intro. So yeah, use what you have. Don't ignore your past. Incorporate it. And the key thing is don't be vague. The who's, the what's, the where's, the when's, the how's, these are very important. There's an actual format called the STAR method. And the STAR method is situation, task, action, result. And I always put an L at the end for learning. So if you can organize your projects into that and your stories into that setup, it's a good way to go. All right. So definitely pull in any coursework, projects, extracurricular stuff, bring it all in. Oh, I do have the STAR method in here. So the STAR method, the spiral method is my terrible acronym, but I had a client who said, I actually remember spiral a lot better because I have it written down as spiral so you don't spiral. And I was like, damn, that's good, man. I'm going to steal that. So when you think about it, situation, I was working on this project with these people. That's a situation. I'm doing this presentation with all of you. All right. The problem, the images weren't showing up. That's the problem. The action you took went through every line of code to find where the error was. The result, I found one missing comma. What did I learn from that I'll apply in the future? All right. This is the spiral method. So definitely jot it down and use this as you're trying to outline your stories. All right. Take a screenshot if you need to. And the main thing that I'm trying to get across here is, what did you learn? This is what everyone forgets in the interview. They go, this is what happened. Tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. Well, I worked with this one jerk and we had a total conflict, but we figured it out and now I don't work there anymore. All right, what'd you learn? Like, what's the takeaway from that? I have no idea. You just had a jerk and you don't work there anymore. So we need to talk about the learning, right? I went through this experience and I learned something from it. All right. So personally, someone could say, what's a time where you felt unprepared as a coach? Or how was it phrased? I had an interview once where they said, tell me about a time where you had to set a boundary in your coaching. I was like, boundary? Yeah, interesting question. Well, I had a client who was overreaching in their want to contact me. And so we had set times that we were supposed to chat, and they had the ability to chat with me on Slack and things like that. But they kept trying to get me on the phone more often, or get additional services that the school wasn't offering. And they also wanted my home address to send me a gift at one point. And I had to put in some boundaries, So I had to, find a way to get to not be mean and say, I don't want the gift, but to find a way to get it shipped that didn't give out my personal information, right? Because as a coach, you need to set boundaries. So these are things that I would have to refine that story. That's actually a fairly new story. But as you're going through and you're thinking about your stories, what did you learn from that? Well, I learned that while I'm supposed to be here for people, there also need to be clear boundaries around, times that you're working, times when you're not, in order to protect your schedule and so on. This isn't a great example, but it's fine because it's something that now I'm going to go work on that spiral method and eventually be able to use it in an interview in the future. All right. So each time that you tell your story, make sure that at the end you talk about what you learn, and then if even better, tie it back to the company, right? So I learned that I had to go through and find the commas and set up a better process for double checking my work. And in the future, when I work on projects with your business, I think that it would be really great to actually implement a system or see what systems you already have in place and see how we can improve them to double check our development work as we're building it and make sure that everything's moving smoothly. Now, this is kind of a funny one, but answer questions like a politician. Now, I say this a little bit tongue in cheek. I don't want you to go full politician because that's annoying, but I do want you to incorporate some of the things that politicians do. For instance, when a politician gets on stage, do you think they get up there and they go, boy, I wonder what questions they're going to ask me tonight. I sure hope they ask me the one that'll let me tell the story I want to tell. No. They go, I'm going to tell the story about Farmer Joe, regardless of what these people ask me, right? And then someone says, hey, what's your opinion on the budget? And they go, well, Farmer Joe in Montana, and they just launch into something unrelated. Don't do that. But do know what stories you want to tell and then tie them in to your the questions that you're asked. So if someone says, tell me about a time that you showed leadership, you already know the 4 projects that you want to refer to. So then you go, I'm going to talk about this project from the leadership perspective. Tell me about a time that you had a struggle. I'm going to talk about this project from the struggle perspective. Tell me about a time you had conflict with a coworker. I'm going to talk about this project from the conflict perspective. And you can talk about the same project multiple times from different perspectives because you just dig into a smaller piece of that project. So for instance, I worked on this one coaching, this premium line coaching product for a company once. I could talk about a coworker conflict during that. I could talk about a time I showed leadership in that project. I could talk about the results of that project. I could talk about a time where, you know, I wasn't happy with the work I did in that project. All those stories exist in that 6-month project. All right. So get the broad project story and then think about the nuances of how you could tell different parts of that story, depending on the questions that you're asked. Does that make sense? Cool.
Makes sense.
And the key thing here is to speak to what you can do. All right. You're not going to have an answer to every question. One of the key things that I try to teach people in my mock interview coaching is that we have this sort of idea that we should have an answer and be perfect. We should prep for an interview with the goal of being perfect. If I do all my interview prep right, nothing will go wrong. And I think that that's incorrect. Something always goes wrong. So my question is, when things go wrong, did you prepare how to get back on track? So I'll be doing a mock interview with someone and they'll screw up and they'll go, oh, wait, can I start over? And I'll go, you're kind of ruining this mock interview because you're treating me like a coach instead of an interviewer, right? If I was an actual interviewer and you screwed up, what would you do? If you don't practice that before the interview, you're going to freeze, right? We have fight, flight, or freeze. Some people most people won't fight. So you're either going to freeze and then just look like an idiot. I've been in that position where I'm just like, I have no idea what to say. And I feel like a complete moron right now. Or you're going to run away, which normally looks just like rambling, like blah, 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 until you like kind of petter out and like don't know what you said, right? So we want to prep for things going wrong. Let's say they ask you about a technology you don't know. How will you respond to that? Will you say, I don't know. I don't know that one. And then they go, okay. And then they move on to the next question, which is like terribly awkward. Or are you going to go, you know, I haven't used that particular technology, but I have used these other ones that are similar to it. And I got up and running on those pretty quickly. And I've used them in these ways. How are you currently using this technology? And how essential is it for the role? I could probably get up and running on it in 3 to 6 weeks and be ready to go on day one if it's an essential piece of the job. See how much more confident that I don't know is when you say it in that way, right? So it's about being able to roll with the punches, all right? I'm a rambler. I'm sure at this point in our conversation, you can tell. So I ramble in interviews. The question isn't, how do I stop rambling? Although it would be great if I could tamper it a little bit. The question is, how do I get back on track if I ramble too far? And the way I do that is I say, boy, I get really excited about these things. Sorry, let me restate the question really quick. And I restate the question and I give the shorter answer. So a lot of what I want you to do as you're prepping for interviews and prepping for networking and doing all these different things is to get better at messing up. Just mess up better. Don't avoid mistakes. Just get better at making them. All right. Any questions on that? I know it's kind of a weird counterintuitive one. So your takeaway from this section is to write down your 4 to 6 struggle and success stories, your favorite projects that you've worked on. Write down what you learned from each of these stories and talk about how these learnings will inform your future work. All right. Now we're going to get into the pitch. This is the more interactive part. So when it comes to talking about yourself, especially when you're going through a big transition like this, I tend to find that people want to sort of run away from their past. Is anyone feeling that way? Like, I just want to pretend my previous work never happened, and I just want to focus on coding or whatever it is that you're focused on. What were you doing before? Give me a shout.
I troubleshooted Apple phones, iOS.
Okay, cool. And that's something you want to ignore or something you want to incorporate?
No, I'm definitely going to incorporate it.
Hell yeah, I mean, that's what I like to hear.
I'm learning not to, shy away from my past because I've learned that my past might just help me out.
It definitely does. Very often, I actually had someone who was a professional gambler. He was a professional poker player for 4 years. And then he wanted to be a data analyst. And I looked at his resume and he just had a 5-year gap on his resume. I was like, what'd you do during these 5 years? He's like, oh, I was a professional poker player. And I go, why isn't that on here? He goes, well, it might be sketchy. I think companies won't like that. And I go, what's sketchier? Going into an interview and talking about something that is broadcast on ESPN on a fairly regular basis, or having nothing on your resume and being a man of mystery like James Bond for 5 years? Like, much better to go in and talk about how you learned how to become a professional poker player for 4 years and how you can use those learnings in your data analysis than to just like, if I said, what'd you do before you got into data analysis? And you said nothing, that'd be so weird, right? And, you might find that one person who loves to play poker on the weekends and they want to hire you in a minute, right? Or that one or talk to a company that uses game theory in their products and you get hired in a minute, right? We don't want to shy away from our past. The same way when I introduced myself, I incorporated my marketing background. You want to incorporate your previous work with what you're doing now in order to be able to differentiate yourself in the job search, right? Even if you were in customer service or you were a teacher or you were a musician or whatever it was, incorporate it. What we don't want to say when they say, why are you here? What do you want? Like, why do you want this job? Or what did you do before? Well, I didn't like my previous job, so I quit, or I changed jobs to make more money. As true as some of these things may be for some of us, they're not the whole truth. The whole truth is that you chose your current path for a reason, and we need to dig in and figure out what that reason is, all right? Because what they hear is, I quit when things aren't perfect and I'll probably quit this job. And we do not want to signal that. Try to stay away from negativity in all the different ways you talk about your past. When I was in marketing, there were plenty of things that I disliked. When I was in advertising, there were plenty of things I disliked. Some of those things being my manager in one of my roles. Some of those things being the work in some of my roles. Some of those things being the culture at some of the companies that I was at. But I don't talk about those things in interviews. Talk about those things personally with people that I trust, or I guess publicly when I'm using it as an example. But you don't want to use it in your interview. You don't want to say in your interview, I hated what I was doing, so now I'm doing this. It's just not the way to go, right? Or, I was working as a nurse and it was so many hours, and now you're like angry, like the tone of the interview changes because now you're focused on like, oh, I hated the hours and it was like so just busy. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't get pulled into the muck during the interview, right? Same when answering the question, tell me, did you have a conflict with a coworker? Don't talk about a conflict that's still fresh, like a wound that's still fresh, right? You don't want the tone of the interview going from like, hey, I'm happy and curious and here to help, to I really hated Deborah. Like, you don't want that. That's no good. So always be bringing it back to this, like, here to help, here because I'm curious, here because your company's doing cool things and I want to help you do more cool things, right? Focus on the positivity and incorporate the past. This really does become your differentiator, right? I'm a career coach with a marketing background, and that differentiates me from the life coach who uses crystals, No hate if that's your thing, but I don't use crystals. I use marketing. All right. So these are the things that differentiate us and make us stand out in the job search. If you have a customer service background and now you're in user experience, well, your customer service background definitely ties into your user experience research, right? And your customer research and your, the ways in which you can interview people and stuff like that. So incorporate these things. Double down on the present. So I used to do this thing, and that's what led me to what I'm doing today. I did this, I learned this about myself, and now I do this thing. So for me, I used to be in marketing and advertising. I learned that I could use these things to help individuals change their careers, and that led me into education. All right. Lean into what you're currently doing. A lot of you are not going to own the fact that you are what you are yet. You're going to wait for someone to hire you before you feel like you can call yourself the thing. What's a role that one of you are applying for? What job title do you want to have after this program?
Front end.
Front end
engineer.
Do you call yourself a front end engineer yet?
Negative.
No. Why not?
Negative. I don't feel like I am yet. Like I'm in a learning phase.
Exactly. You're in the learning phase. The nice thing about the learning phase is that everyone who's ever become a front end engineer had to go through the learning phase. So the learning phase is actually step one in being a front end engineer. So it's not learn, then I'm a front end engineer. It's once I start learning, because the learning process never stops. The day I start learning how to be a front end engineer is the day I become a front end engineer. All right. This isn't being a surgeon, right? I'm not going to call myself a surgeon and start going to do surgery on someone's head until I pass the surgery. That's different, right? This is, do you know more about front end than the person you're talking to? Which the answer is at this point, yes. You know more than me, and I coach front end people. That means you're a front end engineer, right? The same thing is if you lose your job, right? Let's say someone's a marketer and they lose their job as a senior digital marketer at X company. Do they cease to be a marketer just because they're not getting a paycheck anymore, right? No, they're still a marketer. They're just a marketer looking for a job. You're a front-end engineer finishing up your boot camp who's looking for a job, all right? Own your title now. It helps, all right? If we only were the thing that we are when we're getting paid, well, I only get paid by the hour. So does that mean in the half hour between my coaching calls when I'm not being paid by someone that I cease to be a career coach? No, clearly that'd be absurd. So I'm making this kind of ridiculous just to show you that you need to own your title. If you don't believe you're a front-end engineer, why would someone pay you to be a front-end engineer? They're not paying you to learn how to be a front-end engineer. They're paying you to be a front-end engineer. So if you don't believe you're that yet, how are you going to convince them that they should pay you 50, 60K, right? Well, I don't believe I'm a career coach, but if you hire me, I'll be one. Pretty terrible sales message, right? So please own your title now. Own it before they give it to you. Give yourself the title. I'm giving you the permission today to do so. And then project yourself into their future. Using my front-end engineer skills, I can help your business accomplish these things. I started my career doing this. I'm now a front-end engineer, and together we can do some cool things at your company. And then bring it all together. The past, present, future. How did you get here, and why should they care? So I like to phrase this as, I started my career doing X. What I learned about myself doing that work was blank, which led me into my current work doing blank. All right. So I started my career in customer service. I learned that I learned a lot about customer issues and how to solve them from a customer relations perspective. But I actually started to really get an itch to actually go build the solutions. So I got into web development. And that is why I'm so excited about web development, because I've been working with customers for so long. Now I actually get to build those solutions. And I'm excited to talk to you about this role and see what problems your customers are having and see how we can build some really cool tech to help them out. See how good that pitch is in comparison to, I'm here to learn and I want to solve problems. Totally changes it, right? So I started my career doing this. I learned this about myself. That got me into what I'm doing today, and I can't wait to help you in the future. And we can break this down even further. Merging a background in my previous work with my current work, I help companies accomplish these goals. This is going to be the pitch that we write together, all right? So what this looks like in practice, merging a background in customer service and web development, I help companies create amazing experiences for their users online. This could go on your LinkedIn summary, on your headline in your resume, wherever you want it to be. You can even just use it as your baseline for the conversation. Don't let this be the only thing you say in your pitch, but it could be a starting point for your personal pitch, right? So now I'm going to challenge you all to, in the chat, write your pitch. Merging a background in blank role, I help companies accomplish these goals. All right? Give it a shot.
You want us to write the same thing or?
Nope, write your version of it. So
Okay.
merging my background in your previous job with the current thing that you're trying to do, the current thing you're studying in the boot camp, I help companies accomplish these outcomes. So bring together everything we talked about today. If you don't know what outcomes you can provide, remember what we said earlier. Google, why should I hire? And then type in your title. And it'll give you the answers. Put yourself in the shoes of the company. They're going to Google that. They're going to say, why should I hire a front-end developer? Why should I hire a cybersecurity person? Why should I hire a marketer? Why should I hire this? And then they Google it and they look at all the reasons and they say, yeah, those are good enough reasons to hire someone. But usually it comes down to getting more customers, re-engaging your customers, getting more sales, improving experiences, building better solutions, launching new products, you know, typical business stuff. Merging a background in music production, public speaking, and computer science, I provide a very practical answer for any company looking to increase revenue with more streamlined and modern implementation of best programming practices. I like it. It's a little wordy. We can definitely clean it up, but you've got the core here. Merging a background in music production, public speaking, and computer science, I help companies increase revenue through streamlined programming practices. I think that's really nice and clean. Merging a background in finance, I help companies break down complex topics with easy to use tech. We got to get what's the role you're going for, Andre?
Right, the front end.
So merging a background in finance and front-end web development, I help companies break down complex information into easy to use technologies. Something like that. That feels like a good starting spot, and then keep talking through it until it gets more comfortable for you. Anyone struggling with yours? We can go through it together.
I want to be the front end developer, but I'm kind of struggling with that part though.
Okay, talk me through it.
So like I have a background like with the technical support side, like I mentioned earlier. So I'm trying to figure out like if I could say, you know, merging a background with, you know, technical support, but I'm trying to incorporate the front end part. I don't know what to say on the front end.
So merging a background in technical support and front end development, I help companies build practical solutions for their customers, something like that.
Okay.
Because you have that technical support piece, which is like solutions focused. I'm just trying to tie it in there. Maybe the how you help companies thing, we can evolve a little bit as you practice this. But the first piece is simple: merging a background in technical support and and front end web development. I help companies, and then you can work on that final piece.
Okay.
Merging a background in pharmacy, accounting, and software development. I help companies with growth in teamwork and the attention to the most minor of details. So this is where we're getting vague. So I'm going to push back on this one. When you say growth in teamwork, I don't know what you mean as a hiring person, right? I'm the one that's building the team. I'm the one that's growing the team. You're the one that is solving a very specific problem that the team has, right? The designer is not going to solve the problem that you're going to solve because you're the developer. So what are the development problems that you're going to solve for the team so that the designer and the marketer and everyone else can do their jobs, right? So merging a background in pharmacy, accounting, and software development, I help companies. And that's what we need to work on. So spend a little time on that piece there. But I would say you do have a good piece here where you want to get into like the details. So you could say, I help companies. Or bring a detail-oriented approach to their web development practices in order to streamline their online presence, something like that. Does that help? Cool, seeing some nods. Merging a background in aircraft mechanic and software engineer, I help companies complete tasks in a timely manner with attention to detail. All right, this is where we're getting vague again, Ronald. What tasks? Right? If I said, I'm a career coach, and you say, great, what do you help me with? And I say, things. You'd be like, what things? And I say, job search related things. And you go, which job search related things? And I go, you know, like things that help you get jobs. You're going to kick me at some point, right? You're going to be like, dude, can you rewrite my resume? Yo, can we do a mock interview? What do you help me with, right? So this is what we need to do. And this is what I'm pushing you to be is specific, right? If you tell me that you help complete tasks or solve problems or grow teams or improve efficiency, I will always say efficiency of what? Teams that create what? Tasks that accomplish what things, right? What outcomes are we helping with? But I really appreciate what you put out there though. Merging my culinary background in hospitality with front-end development, I help companies build beautiful websites with the customer's experience in mind. Elaine. Bravo. That's all it is. Now we can always go deeper. What experiences? But that's what the interview is for. Now the interview is about talking about what experiences the company wants to build and how you're able to help them build them. So we're not talking about anything other than their experiences and how to improve those experiences and your skills and how your skills can help them improve them. So really good job, everyone. You can add this to your LinkedIn summary. You can use this in the tell me about yourself question. The past, present, future thing is a more comprehensive version of this tiny pitch. So started my career doing this. I learned this about myself. Now I do these things and I help companies in these ways. That's a great way to start your pitch. Merging a background in marketing, sales, support, and web development, I help companies with SEO optimization and creating sleek user interfaces for applications. Caleb, I think you just put a cherry on top. Bravo, man. That was really good. That was a really good one. So to wrap up this section, how did you get here? What do you do? And how does it help? That's the key takeaway. All right. And we're at the end here. So I'll open it up for any questions about what we covered today or anything else related to the job search. Hit me with it.
So like personally, I don't know exactly what field of tech I want to get into. So do you recommend like figuring that out before starting the job search, or kind of picking from a few different ones and asking questions?
So there's a few things there. So the first one is, when you say field, do you mean industry, or do you mean like what kind of development you do? Like,
so I mean, technically I'd be open to a different industry if it was a great opportunity, but specifically in the tech industry, like front end versus business IT, back end, stuff like that.
Cool. So the key there is to go look at those different job descriptions and try and get a sense of what they are. And if you can make any decisions based on that, great. But those, like I said before, it's a lot of marketing jargon, so it won't help. It might be confusing. The best thing to do is to go talk to people with those jobs. Go talk to a business analyst, go talk to a developer, go talk to a person in each of these roles, and ask them, what do you like about your job? What are you excited about? What are you struggling with? What do you dislike? Get them complaining or get them like gushing about their role, and it will give you a pretty good sense of which way you want to go. If you hear it from real people in the roles, you're going to get a much better sense than if you like, I always make the comment, like, don't watch Mad Men and decide to be in advertising. Like, it's just not, it's not what it is, right? Go talk to someone who works in advertising and you'll find out it's like mostly just sending emails to people all day if you're an account manager. And like, you're going to get a pretty good sense that it's like of what the actual role looks like. So start there, talk to real people, ask them what the real job is like, and then make some decisions. And then what you can do is batch your job search. So for the next month or two, I'm going to just search for these types of roles. And then if I get a job, great. If I don't, then I know I'm not going to go that route, right? But you can kind of eliminate options versus jumping back and forth between things. Sometimes people will be like, I have 4 different resumes, each for a different type of role. And all day long, they're like trying to convince themselves that they want to be a business analyst this hour of the day, and they want to be a developer this hour of the day. And they tend to go kind of nuts because it's just so scattered and your brain can't keep up with like the constant switching. The same thing with like industries and companies. It's like, oh, today I'm interviewing at a fashion company. Tomorrow I'm interviewing at a food company. The next day I'm interviewing at, a computer company. It's like, your brain has to keep saying, this is the job I want. And because they're not related, we can tend to get a little bit mixed up. Versus if someone said, I know I want to work in the video game industry, and then every conversation they have is with a video game company or someone who works at a video game company, they're just going to become more and more powerful because it's just more and more information that's all related to itself. So a lot of information there, but basically chunking it out and talking to real people is the best way to go.
I guess somewhat on that note about talking to real people. So the keyword you hear a lot getting thrown around when it comes to networking is LinkedIn. Do you have any other good tips for non-LinkedIn networking ideas?
I use LinkedIn as a way to find people, and then I try to get off of LinkedIn as quickly as possible. So I use LinkedIn to see who I want to meet with because it has everyone on there. And then I send them a personal email, and you can use Clearbit Connect to find people's email addresses so that I don't get lost in LinkedIn. I know everyone checks their email. So if I want to get higher response rates, I send them a personalized email and I try to get them on the phone for a virtual coffee or an in-person coffee. That I find to be the best way to network, to have like long-term connections. But it is the highest sort of lift. It's the hardest thing to do. So the easiest thing to do is to connect with people and like their posts and share their posts and comment on their posts, and then eventually make your own posts. That's like passive kind of social media networking. But then you want to take it to the next level and meet people and have real conversations, and then take it to the next level and get involved with volunteer organizations and put yourself into those communities. Basically, what you want to do is say, where are the conversations happening and how do I join those conversations? So anything you can do to become part of a community, which you already are with this boot camp, which is a huge, huge leg up. Stay involved with the alumni network, stay involved with the community, and keep finding more communities to get involved with. Individuals and communities. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, just use LinkedIn. There's Indeed, there's all sorts of other things. Discord is great for meeting people. Go join a bunch of tech Discords and things like that. But everyone's on LinkedIn, so it's worthwhile. Any final questions? Cool. Well, keep in touch.
I might have one more.
Jump in.
Sorry, last one. So like a dream job for me might be something like working with a audio resale company, or something that works with music, like maybe a front end for a studio or something like that. All of the big jobs that I've seen, like from the companies that I'm familiar with, that are like the super big companies like Sweetwater, they all require like 5-10 years experience. Do you have any suggestions for like how I can find more those companies that like I don't even know about right now that might be needing somebody that can learn with them,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
80% of jobs are not found through job boards. They're found through personal connections. So what I would do is go to music events, go to industry events, go to networking events and meet people who work in that industry. Most entry-level roles are hired through people who know people at the company, and they never get posted online. So what you're seeing online is a very small percentage of the actual jobs that are out there. So typically the way a company hires is they say, who in the company can do this thing? And if no one can do it, they say, who in the company knows someone who can do this thing? And that's usually where it stops. They find someone. If you have more than 50 employees, you're going to find someone who can do the entry-level role. If they can't find that, then they go to the job boards. So the more people you can meet who work in the industry, the more events you can go to and organizations you can join and things like that, the more opportunities you'll find in this work. And if you're excited about music, it's going to be that much easier because you're actually legitimately there to talk about this stuff, right? And then just keep applying to things, even if it says 3 to 5 years. You never know. You never know. Like, I wouldn't be dissuaded by that. Maybe 5 years is a bit much, but like, you'll never see anything posted with 0 years experience. It's always minimum of 3 years experience, which means it's BS, which means go for it anyway. It doesn't mean you'll hear back from it all, but I'd rather give it a shot than to self-censor, right? A little bit of overconfidence is better than underconfidence in these situations. Any follow-ups there? Did I fully answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Cool.
That helps.
All right. Well, we will end there, but stay in touch. Let me know if anything else comes up. I'm always happy to answer questions on LinkedIn or, after this call. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I also have a podcast called Career Therapy if anyone's interested in just like hearing pretty candid conversations about, the realities of the job search with different industry professionals. And I do coaching. So, I'll just toss that out there, but we won't belabor it. So keep in touch. Good luck with everything. Congrats on your upcoming, boot camp graduation and job search. I'm excited for you all. you're going to do great. So just go out there, be excited, be curious, and try to help these companies, because that's the core of the job search. You're here to help. You're not here to impress. You're not here to get something. You're not here for them to help you. You're here to help them. And that, at the end of the day, is what's going to be the mindset that gets you the job.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Talk soon, y'all. Have a good one.
All right.
Yeah.